You are listening to the Book Perspective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So, with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Book Perspective. And this week we are covering Empire of Storms by Sarah J Maas. And it's book 5, I think, of the series. So we're actually recording for the first time together since November, I think. We've been recording on Riverside, which I don't know when I'm going to start posting the actual videos, but so we're trying to have videos. Also, I've been very busy, so it's helpful. And then Keely moved, so we're in the new bookstore. Lots of things. So, yeah, when was the last time we recorded? That was already a week ago. That was earlier this week. So I guess I could ask Keely how her week was.
My week's been okay. Nothing special going on. Been pretty just going with the flow, I guess. A lot of reading. I'm tired.
I forgot. How is that going? The what's that thing called?
The panel, yeah. It is going for sure. We've discussed maybe half of the books that we've done, and they said once we get down through our first reads, because we initially have to do 50 pages, at least 50 pages, and once we get through that and we start knocking stuff down, or like that we're not going to continue reading, then the rating system is going to change a little bit. So apparently it's going to be easier after that, but it's a lot of books. There's been I think it ended up being a total of 38 books. Yeah. It's very fantasy romantasy heavy, which is cool. Some of them are Siri just popped up. Yeah, it's I'm tired.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of reading when it's like a job and not always pleasure. Also, we're recording this on Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day to everyone who's celebrating. If you're not, happy Valentine's Day from us to you. What was I don't know. I literally cannot pull my head out of the clouds. I'm everywhere all the time, like chaotic. I don't have a morsel of time left in my life. I need it to be end of March, like now. I'm so overwhelmed every day, but I reading is great. We are recording this. So our Onyx Storm episode is a couple weeks from now, but we're recording this after we've recorded our Onyx Storm. Me and Keely, more me than Keely, but are on book hangovers. I'm struggling. And go skip ahead a minute because this is a kind of an Onyx Storm spoiler. This is Empire Storms is not a recommended read after or with Onyx Storm. They are very similar. So take that how you will. I just don't want to spoil anything either way. But yeah, so yeah, we just need after this to we need some smut books or something. We gotta move categories here pretty hard. But yeah, so I don't think there's any announcements. I don't think anything's coming up. I think everything's pretty good. So Keely, do you have the blurb?
The lights went out. So you guys know the lights in the building that I'm at are motion censored, except for the specific suite. So I saw the lights go out and it scared me. But oh, as long as this one's not haunted, we're good. The long path to the throne has only just begun for Aelin Galathynius. Loyalties have been broken and bought, friends have been lost and gained, and for those who possess magic and find themselves at odds with those who don't. With her heart sworn to the warrior prince by her side and her fealty pledged to the people she's determined to save, Aelin will delve into the depths of her power to protect those she loves. But as monsters emerge from the horrors of the past and dark forces become poised to claim her world, the only chance for salvation will lie in the desperate quest that may mark the end of everything Aelin holds dear. In this breathtaking fifth installment of the Throne of Glass series, Aelin will have to choose what and whom to sacrifice if she's to keep the world of Aurelia from breaking apart. Dun dun dun.
So, if you could describe this book in one word, what would you say?
I would say anxiety. And that's just like my personal feelings while reading the book. I was anxious and now I'm mad. But yes.
I just want to say, this is not a word. I just want to say, my Shayla. That's how I feel. Like, oh, my Shayla. I'm devastated. I'm devastated. This book is devastating. It's so good. It's devastating though. So obviously I'm not to the spoiler part yet, but like when we're mid-series, it's hard not to be spoilery for like past books. So this is just a general summary, but this book opens up with Aelin. So again, if you are at the beginning of Throne of Glass, you don't know who Aelin is, but we have Aelin. Aelin is with Rowan, Aedion, Lysandra, and they are in Terrasen trying to regain her seat. And very quickly that is shut down. They do not respect her as the heir to the throne. So she's like, all right, I can show you better than I can tell you. So she gets right to business and heads out to Skull's Bay, which we remember from Assassin's Blade, which is where we met Rolf, who is the pirate lord there. But before we can get there, she sends Rowan very quickly to Rifthold because Duke Parrington, which we know is Erewhon, sent the witches to sack it and try to kill Dorian, who is now king. Rowan gets there literally in the nick of time because Manon kind of delays and saves Dorian because there's something there. And Rowan is able to save Dorian and get him to Skull's Bay where they meet back up. And basically Aelin is like, hey, Rolf, you're going to be on my side or else. And that's kind of what happens. And she like has to defend Skull's Bay like the whole team does. She unleashes her very severe firepower. She also is possessed a little bit. Lysandra is a bad bee all the time. She is shape-shifting all over the place. There are lots of relationships brewing in this book. It is so, so, so good. And then so we get that, and then they head to Ilway because not only are there word keys, of course, there's a lock for the key. And so while this is all going on, Manon is in trouble for kind of saving Dorian, and because she had to kill witches to do so, and she is punished by being told that she's going to have to kill Astrid, and she refuses to do so. So then her and her grandma are going to have to duke it out, and she ends up injured and then ends up with our band of friends later on in the book. And they basically, they end up in Ilway, and they kind of end up in a face-off with not only Erewhon and his miscreants, but also Maeve and her cadre, who are really like torn very much in the middle. And we also have Lorcan, who I do like Lorcan. And I like Lorcan more on my reread than I did the first time. Lorcan in a lead, coming up the rear, really in this book. So at the end, we do have everyone together except for Kayal, because we know that Kayal went south to the Torre Chesme because at the end of the last book he is paralyzed because of the King of Aelin. So that's just like a really general summary for a big book with a lot of big things happening. I know that there are probably triggers. There are the same triggers for all the books. There is war, there is violence, there is misogyny, there's racism, there is sexism, there is isms. There's just lots of isms. There's tons. We're just gonna get right into it. Also, our format has changed. Now, this is a little bit different because this book is like mid-series, so like some of the questions that we have aren't really gonna apply because this isn't like a brand new book to us. Also like still playing with that format, like not taking as much detailed notes, but then also do still kind of have them, gonna talk about things. So we're still like playing with that a little bit. But yeah, so if you have not read this book and you do not want to be spoiled, this is your notice to pause here and come back later. Otherwise, we are going to get right into it. So, this book just really opens right up with, it actually opens up with the prologue, and the prologue is from Elena. So we know Elena, from the very beginning, she has been like the ghost the whole time. Was she queen? Or was she ever queen or was she just a princess? I don't know if she was ever queen. I feel like she was queen. She was queen. Anyways, she was something. And so she and Gavin, who was her husband, took down Erewhon, which is not really true. The legend always says that they took down Erewhon, but what we'll learn is that they really didn't. And we open up with her in the prologue, basically saying how she's going to have to like kind of like sacrifice her own people to get this opportunity, and even kind of sacrifice Gavin to get the one opportunity she can to possibly take down Erewhon, and also has like stolen from her dad, who is King Brannon, in order to try to defeat Erewhon. Even though Gavin does not think that there's any hope in this situation, they are basically like on a battlefield, and yeah, like things are not looking good. I mean, obviously we do know that Erewhon was subdued in some way, shape, or form, but was not like 100% defeated. So then we like jump right into it. So at the end of the last book, like a lead. They drop a lead off in the woods. Again, I know plot. Like, the girl can't read. You know, SJM loves a girl that can't read. She can't read. She can't walk right because her ankle's messed up. You drop her off in the woods with a word key, and she's lost. She's lost. There's witches flying overhead, and she can feel somebody watching her, which we do like very quickly learn is Lorcan. He was not hunting her. He was hunting the witches. He was actually being hunted by like the word hounds, and then he was hunting down the witches for the word keys. And then he sees a lead. Also, this book jumps around a lot, so you just have to bear with me. Then we jump to Aelin and Rowan. Like, okay, so different than like previously, my notes are not like as like succinct. So I put Aelin and Rowan are disgustingly into each other. Like they're basically like Adian and Lysandra like just find things for them to do so that they can be like out of like away. Like they're like they have not had sex or anything yet, but they're just on top of each other all the time. Yeah, so like they're just like they're just that couple. Like they're just and again, it's Fae world, so like sense. Again. So yeah, they're like gross. You guys are disgusting. So they are in Terrason, and basically like the reason that they haven't had sex yet is because Rowan's like, I don't want our first time to be up against a tree. I'm like, okay, whatever. Why does it matter? You guys are in the woods. It's like prehistoric times. It doesn't matter. But Adian has set up a meeting with them to meet with the lords of Terrason, like all of the houses, and he's been like educating Aelin on all this because Adian was like involved, like he knows all this stuff. He was a general for Otto, and he knows all these things. And then we jump over to Manon, who her grandmother has arrived in Morath. Manon is still in Morath, and Duke Harrington is like actually no longer. Erewhon has actually body jumped out of him, and he's like in like a younger body, and his eyes are fully gold like Manon's, which we did learn in the last book that the witches are part Volk, like they come for them. But not all of them have gold eyes, but it's like the ones who have more gold eyes are like the Vogue are like more scared of or something. They don't like to mess with them. So he decides that he wants to send the witches to Rifthold because he wants to take the city back because obviously Aelin, like, they took down the glass castle. They killed the king. Well, Dorian killed his dad. And he wants Dorian delivered to him. And he says, bring down that glass wall because he wants that symbol of Aelin's power, like, wiped out and like all the mercy that she offered because symbols mean a lot. And Manon is like, okay, well, also while I do this, because she's never planning on killing Dorian. There's obviously they had that moment. She also wants to take down Iskra Yellowlegs. We have hated Iskra since the very beginning. She has been gunning for her job as wing leader, and you know what? That's so funny. As soon as I said that, I was like, the wing leader. Oh my gosh. How coincidental. Anyways, we both had like a moment of recognition at the same time when I said wing leader. And you know what? I love this wing leader too. Like, same. That is hilarious. I don't know why I have not put that together until now. It just like clicked in my brain. So going back to Aelin and the gang, they go to this like tavern to meet, and they were supposed to meet in the woods, but what's his name? What's the older guy's name? I cannot think of his name. Shoot. It's like right there. The one who was in Rifthold with it, like the good one. All I can remember is Ren. I know, and it's not Ren. It's the one that's with him, the older guy. He was in Rifthold originally. He's really one of the good ones, but he's not doing as well. Like, he's just getting older. He couldn't make the trip out into the woods. So they go and meet like all of the guys at the tavern. And Lysandra has been like in like animal form this whole time, but she does shift back into a human form because she's supposed to be a lady of the court, and she does make her boobs smaller. And basically, the leader of this group is Lord Darrow, and he is an asshole. Ren also, though, is like kind of weird, and I think it's because of like him finding out that Celaena and Aelin are the same person. Like, people are real up. I don't get that. Like, that's something I do not understand. I don't get the whole being mad at Aelin for being Celaena thing.
You gotta survive somehow. I don't understand either.
Like, I mean, she was a child. She was a child. Also, like, even up until this book, I mean, we're still getting information. She went to a slave prison. Like, I don't know what, it's never enough with her. And even at the end of this book, like, it's still never enough. Like, and then they're like, oh, like, we're being hard on her. Yeah. So anyways, Ren's being weird. So, like, they basically have this meeting, and Darrow's basically like, you're just an assassin. He calls Lysandra a whore. He's talking about how Rowan's fae, how she's like got Rowan in her bed, but like, you're supposed to be the queen, da 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 da, and basically says like, you don't just get to be the queen because you're the last living Galathynius. We have to all vote for you, and even if Ren's family like votes for you, that's only 1 out of 5, and like the rest of us are not going to vote for you. And so she tells Ren like, well, no matter what, like you're always going to have a seat in my court because of what you did to help Nehemia. And Darrow like he's still like going or whatever, Darrow, whatever it is, and Rowan literally is like, yeah, I can't take it anymore. He's like, I'm gonna end your life, but he doesn't. But as they're leaving that meeting, they do hear about the witch's attack on Rifthold, and so she's like, I need you to go because Rowan can turn, well, I mean, Lysandra probably could, but she's not gonna be able to save Dorian, so he's literally the only person that could actually save Dorian, so he goes to save Dorian, and she's like, meet me in Skull's Bay because we need to get allies for this war. And they decide to leave Evangeline with the lords, which Evangeline is the young girl that Lysandra was raising. And it's really a test to see, like, can you care for this girl who offers you nothing? And like in return, like, I know I can trust you, basically. So we go over to Dorian, and Dorian's still pretty miserable. Obviously, he has horrible PTSD. He was abused, and he just killed his father. And he hates being king. And he left his mom and his brother are not there. He left them, like, they're off in the mountain somewhere. He just left them wherever they were. And no matter what he does, like, he cannot get rid of the collar mark from where he had the collar on. Like, it does not tan. It does not do anything. So the witches attack, and he does use his ice power, but like he has not trained it. It's not very strong. He ends up getting cornered by one of the witches and a wyvern, but Manon is there and she saves him. But he does end up getting kind of like wounded. And she can tell, like, her and Rowan can tell, like, he has no motivation to live. He's like, He's like he's like the Vaturi in like the end of Twilight, the one that's like when there's like the fake scene that doesn't really happen. He's like, finally, like kill me. Like, or Dorian is like, I don't want to do this. But Rowan's like, how do we get out of here? And they go out like through the tunnels, basically. So as Rowan is coming though, he sees Manon and he almost wants to kill her because obviously like that whole thing happened between her and Aelin. But Dorian is like, no, like again, that's his girl. So Dorian just turns to Manon and he says, find me when you change your mind. Love them. And Rowan literally like did not stop to eat, sleep, do anything for 2 days. He just flew straight here. And he's like, they like get on a boat and he goes back into his like hawk, eagle, whatever form. And he like gets them out of there. And all he's thinking about, like, he feels terrible too. He's like glad that they haven't consummated their like relationship because of how like the lords were talking about them at that meeting. So we go back to a lead. She finally figures out who's watching her, which is Lorcan, and they end up getting attacked by this like beast thing. And Lorcan is like, maybe I should use the key. Now, Lorcan thinks that he has a key. He thinks that at the end of the last book that Rowan and Aelin gave him the key in that like lock or whatever, but we know that it's a fake. So he thinks that he has a key because he's trying to collect them for Maeve. Because this beast like is so powerful, it can like break through his shield. He's like, even like Rowan Whitethorn cannot break through my shields. And it's like an 8 foot tall like beast that's like part human, like I don't know. And he can tell that these things are after Elide, not him. But he's like, why? And she just lies and she says like, oh, because I like broke free from Morath. And he like cuts her and is like, let me see your blood, but it's red, like she's human or whatever. So he literally tosses her. Again, Elide's like 5 foot nothing. And Lorcan, by the way, is 6'5". He's a big man. He's a big man. Yeah. He just tosses her over his shoulder and runs. And I'm okay with that. And she tells him that her name is Marion, which is her mom's name. So we go back to Manon, and she's basically put on trial for killing not Iskra. She doesn't kill her. She kills some other Yellowlegs. And Iskra says, you killed my people or whatever. And Manon's like, well, they stole my target. Like, I didn't just kill them for nothing. Da 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 da. And she basically says, Iskra's been trying to get my position this whole time. And she blames it on Rowan, even though like they can smell when like you kill a witch, so they know that. So her grandmother basically says, because Petra, which is the other witch whose wyvern died, but Manon saved her or whatever. She like basically is like, standing up for Manon. So her grandmother, can't stand her, is like, well, Manon, like you don't have to die, but basically an eye for an eye. So your second, which is Astrid, who her grandmother hates, is like, your second is gonna have to die tomorrow at dawn. And they take Astrid into like a dungeon and they like beat her like all night long. Like it's absolutely disgusting. So we go back to Dorian and they're like on this boat headed to Skulls Bay. He's real melancholy and he's still like really upset about Sorsha dying and he's not eating. And Rowan's like, you have to eat, like you have to regain your strength. You need to have power. And he like Dorian assumes that this is like Aelin's mate. And Rowan is like, no, like he's like, I understand too. Like I lost my mate. And Dorian's like, what? You're not mates. And he asked Rowan, like, can you help me train my magic? But Rowan's like, you have like a different kind of magic. So I can't really help you with that, but I can teach you how to like not lose control, basically. And he says like, it will get better like one day. So back with Aelin, she is with Aedion and Lysandra, and they're planning on like getting on a ship in the morning to go to Skulls Bay. But they're like planning on taking back the city that's like overrun by Adarlan soldiers, because it's like a symbol for her country or whatever. And Lysandra is like, Aelin is too calm. Like it's the calm before the storm, and she thinks it's weird because like all of this is like kind of happening at the same time. Like it's weird that like why did Erewhon like wait? Like you guys have been kids like most of your lives. Like why is he waiting 20 years for this to happen? He could have done this at any time or whatever. And she thinks that the gods have specifically picked Aelin and they're using her. And Aedion is like flirting, Aedion's very flirty anyways, but he flirts with Lysandra, but he also wants to really respect her boundaries. Like obviously he knows what she's been through. And he mentions like he also has kind of been through something similar. So it seems like he kind of, well, they did call him Adarlan's whore. Like, so he also was used sexually. He reminds me of Finnick. Yeah, from Hunger Games. So also Love this. He does shut down like the cousin rumors. He like actually says like it makes him disgusting to think about sleeping with his cousin. He does not want to be with Aelin in that way. Like he would because of his duty, but he does not want to be with Aelin. So we love that. He's more like envious, like of the fact that like her and Rowan have found this like love and companionship. He wants something like that. He wants to be married. He actually him and Aelin were like, they had a marriage proposal 10 years ago and it was denied by their cousins overseas in Winland. So Aelin, like, they sack this temple, they get these like people out or whatever, and Aelin is sitting there, and Brannon presents himself, the ghost of Brannon, and she asks, like, can Maeve be killed? And he says he doesn't know. He says that Maeve has outlived all of the Fae, and no one understands her power, but he does know that Maeve fears that their fire, their flame. And she asks, like, Brannon, like, is Maeve Vogue? And he says no. And he tells Aelin that she needs to get the lock for the key. It's in a sunken city, and the only way to recombine the keys, it's the only way to recombine them and get rid of them. And she's like, of course there's a lock. Like, you can't just have the keys. Of course there's a lock. And they basically all come to the conclusion that they think Maeve is like getting ready to like launch an army towards them as well. So they're all sitting there, and then like they feel it, and this like really powerful Vogue like comes up, and it is the chief overseer from Andovir, which is the slave camp that Aelin was in. And basically, Erewhon has like taken like the husk of this man. He has no organs, and he has like an iron like core. I don't know. And like she can't even burn him with his power. And he like his heart like beats out of his. He like I don't know. It's weird. He's gross and disgusting. And Erewhon like can talk through him. It's just like floating eyes. I can't. I don't know. And he's like basically like telling her like he's about to go after Rowan and Dorian. And so we switch over to Manon, and Manon is basically, not only are they going to kill Astrid, she's the one who has to do it. So they get up there, it's like the morning, and Astrid is tied up, and like they've whipped her, they've done all kind of stuff. And so she pulls her sword, she's getting ready to do it, and then she turns to the 13 and she tells them to run, and she slashes at her grandmother. So she starts fighting her grandmother, and her grandmother like slices Manon's stomach open, and she's just trying to give like the 13 time to escape. She doesn't care if she dies. And her grandmother like starts talking to her, and she's like, I always knew you were trash, like all this stuff. She's like, you are no longer my heir, you're not the wing leader. And then she tells her a secret. So her grandmother killed her mom, but that's not just it. Manon is half Kraken. Manon's dad was the last Kraken heir, and him and her mom had specifically got together because there is like a prophecy that is how they will reunite the witches and be able to get their lands back. And her father had come to try to find her several times when she was a child, and her grandmother killed him. Oh, but it gets better. It gets better. The Kraken witch that Manon killed in the last book, I think, was her sister. And her grandmother knew it and made her kill. And that witch only got caught because she specifically came looking for Manon. And her grandmother made her kill him, knowing that Manon didn't know this was her sister. Her sister's name was Rhiannon, who was named after the Kraken witch who cursed the Iron Witches. So, yeah, her grandmother is a real sweet lady. Real sweet lady. So they're fighting. Manon's stomach is literally falling out, and she ends up just rolling off a cliff, and Abraxos catches her. But then, of course, the yellow legs start like flying after them. So it's her and like the two of the 13 that they call the shadows. So they like all like veer off, and she ends up like killing the two that follow her in this like ravine or whatever. And she gets away. So we go back to Alid. Alid gets her and Lorcan hired at this like carnival, and she tells them that we're married, and he's like, I'm sorry, what? He's like, I'm your brother. And she says, you're my husband. Because she's like, no, like a man will take me. They don't care about you being my brother. You're going to be my man. And he's like, I am 500 years old. And she said, and you're my husband. And so they're like hired with this carnival, and basically she's like, he's really good with swords, which he is, and she like is like, I'm good with like fortune telling or whatever. And they learn about the witches taking over like Rithold, and like they ask about Dorian and all this stuff. So Dorian and Rowan make it to Skulls Bay. They meet with Rolf, and Rolf tells them like the Vogue actually have taken part of his territory. They took over Skulls Bay for a little while. He had to like fight to get it back, and he actually lost a lot of his men. And Fenris and Gavriel are here, which, if you don't remember back in Airfire, Gabriel is Aedian's. Did we already? Yeah. So that's the last book. Gabriel is Aedian's daddy. Fenris, love Fenris. Fenris is a twin, and Gabriel turns into like a lion. Fenris is like a white wolf. They are part of the cadre. These are all Fae warriors, and Maeve sent them to kill Lorcan because she feels like Lorcan has betrayed her. And also, Maeve is headed to Eelway. So Rowan like tells Gabriel like about Aedian, and he's like, basically like, we need you guys to like stay and help. And like basically like obviously they have like the blood oath with Maeve, but like they're very far away from her, and she gave them very loose terms. So like they don't have like, she didn't say you have to kill him in 2 weeks. So they can actually like kind of like be loose with it or whatever. So they stay. So 2 weeks go by, and like Aelin and them still are not there. So Rowan's been like training Dorian, and Dorian's like, this is miserable. And he's like, how the hell did Aelin fall in love with you during this? This made Aelin like you? Like, what kind of sadist, masochist kind of relationship do y'all got going? Like, those two are sick, and I love it for them. They are sick. They do like a little kink. But then Aelin does arrive, or so we think. So Rolf goes into his office, and everyone's in there. Rowan, the guys, and Selena is in here. And he's like, I told you not to ever come back here. I told you I would kill you if you ever came back here. And she's like, hi. She's like playing with his rubies, doing all this stuff, flirting with Rowan. And she's like, hey. And Rowan's like, hi. And she's like, oh, like basically like you're a big boy. And he's like, I'm spoken for. And she's like asking Rolf, like, did you like do what I said? Like, have you been like bartering slaves? And he's like, no, I did everything. Da, 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 da. And then all of a sudden, Aelin walks in, and Rolf is like, I'm sorry, what? Aelin does not have a twin. And Rowan knows, like, because he can scent her, obviously, that Selena is actually Aelin, and Lysandra is playing Aelin. And so they basically like reveal like the whole thing. Lysandra shifts back to like herself. So like Rolf is sick. Like he's like, what the? He's like, get out of my place. He's like, get out. He's like, no, I'm not helping you. Get the hell out. So they get out, and like they go stay. They end up actually, Rowan has been staying in the same place that Aelin and Sam stayed too. Oh, also, this is the part I think where Rolf says something about like, are you still acting that way that got Sam killed or whatever? And Rowan is like, I'm sorry, what did you say to my girl? And I'm like, I love a confident king, because this has nothing to do with you. And he was still about to rip his throat out for talking bad about her and Sam. Like, I love that. We love that. We love that. Then we have like this little scene where like, so because Rolf's not like trying to help them, like they're trying to like scope him out or whatever. And Lysandra and Aedian are like pretending to hook up like for hours on this wall alley. And Aedian is like such an ass to Dorian still, which like we know like when they're first introduced, they don't like each other. But Lysandra is like, you're terrible. Like she's like, he was tortured. Like you need to like let up on him. And Aedian also does not want, like he is told that his dad is here, and he does not want to meet him. Like he doesn't want to see him. He's really struggling with that. But Lysandra basically like says like, well, I never knew my dad, which her dad was the shifter. So like she never knew him, and kind of like, talks to Aedian about that and like, chances she might take. So we go back over to Alid, and like she's talking to Lorcan, and Lorcan's like, basically saying like, how long do I have to stay with you? Basically, he's like, well, I can give you this map. And she's like, I can't read. And he's like, aren't you like supposed to be like hot? Like, what's the word? Like, not royalty, but like
No.
nobility. Yeah. Like, and he's like, you cannot read. Like, he's like he can tell like that she's had shackles. Like he's starting to pick up more and more on her. But Lorcan like wants to go to Morath. Like he's basically just like been trying to get pieces from her, and like she's like, she knows that because she's like, as soon as I tell you everything about Morath, like you're just gonna try to leave me. So they like, as they're traveling with this carnival, like they like are supposed to share a tent, but like they've been able to like get out of it, but they end up having to share like a tent finally. So it's like very awkward with them. And all Lorcan can think about is like how he hates that Rowan fell in love and like it ruined him. And it's like, Rowan was such a good soldier, and then he went and fell in love. Like we used to like kill people, and then we'd hook up with girls, and like like it's just like He is such like a bro. Like, get yourself together. Get yourself together. Um, so then we go back to like Aelin and all the guys, and like Fenris has like a very interested, like a piqued interest in Aelin. We learn a little bit about how so Fenris does not like being with Maeve. Lorcan is obsessed with Maeve. Rowan went to Maeve out of like depression. Gabriel, I feel like we never really like he just kind of went out of like duty. Fenris was like a prize. We learned that he goes because he is like the fun brother. His twin is like the not fun brother, and she took advantage of his twin, and so he could not leave his twin behind. So he hates Maeve. But also she knows that and like literally makes him sleep with her. It's very Rhysand. It's very Amarantha. And she makes like that's so disgusting. Like, why do you want to sleep with somebody who doesn't want to sleep with you? I don't, that can't be pleasurable. Like, I just can't. I know that you can make them do it, but like, that doesn't make them have pleasure in doing it. Like, I just can't imagine that's pleasurable. Whatever. Um, and so then Adian finally decides to go meet Gabriel. He takes Lysandra and he literally snaps off on him. He all he says to him is like basically how my mom died. Everyone thought she was a whore. No one ever did anything for her, and it's all your fault. And I never want you to talk to me again. And then he leaves. So I get it, but also he didn't know that you existed. I like it's be one thing if he knew that you existed. And he is in a blood, like magic literally ties him. Like he literally, did you want Maeve coming to get you? Like, I think if his mom was around, she would not be mad at Gabriel.
Yeah.
I don't think her or her sister, obviously Aelin's mom, wanted Maeve anywhere near them. So like, I don't think that she would have done anything any different. I don't think that. So Adian, like, I struggle with him a lot. He struggles a lot. Okay. Rowan and Aelin keep getting interrupted, so still no sexy time. They're trying. We're not getting there. So what we learn is the reason that Aelin also is trying to get Rolf to help is not just because he has Skull's Bay, is because Rolf is Mycenaean, and the Mycenaeans are from Terrasen. And that temple and that city that she saved in Terrasen was for the Mycenaean people. Literally, Aelin is always 100 steps ahead of everybody, and it's insane. It's insane. And so, yes, she was showing the people in Terrasen that she was going to do something, but she specifically picked that city and that temple because it is assigned to the Mycenaeans. Now, the Mycenaeans are supposed to be like a lost people, like a myth, but she's like, I don't think they are. I think that they're here and they're hiding. And she's right. And this is where he asks, did Sam die like while you still mistreated him? And like that's when like Rowan grabs his neck or whatever. So while they're having this whole thing, the other reason that she wants Rolf is because he has that map. And it's because he has like literally he puts his hands together and there's a map from his palm to his fingertips of like the oceans. He can see boats moving and everything. And the Vogue are closing in on them. And so they have to go defend Skull's Bay. And so Rolf ends up giving in, and they decide they're going to take a ship out to fight them away from Skull's Bay. And skipping ahead a little bit, like I said, my notes are like shoddy. I don't write out every little detail anymore. Lysandra becomes a sea dragon. What did you think?
I knew because she kept hinting at, there was something that she's been working on and stuff. And I'm like, okay, what is it going to be? I was not expecting that. And I honestly was really excited. The scene had me anxious, very anxious. I was anxious pretty much the whole time reading this, but I was super excited to see that. So
yeah, so Lysandra turns into a sea dragon because few things. So they go out to fight the Vogue. There's 3 ships, and now the Vogue also they keep making these creatures. They have sea wyverns. So obviously Aelin's firepower is not going to do anything in the water. So they need something that can fight in the sea, but also the god or the like animal of the Mycenaean people is a sea dragon. And so when Aelin saved that temple, inside that temple was a statue of the sea dragon. So Lysandra could literally see it and become it. So they go out on this boat and Lysandra shifts, and Rowan and Aelin start to channel. So they are literally embraced. They cut their hands, they do their Karanom, they start channeling. She has been like, she describes it as like burrowing down into her power like for days, like just stocking up. And she goes to channel all her power because she's gonna blast these boats. And this pisses me off so bad. She gets possessed by a god, which is Diana. And she basically takes over her and she tells Rowan that Aelin needs to get the lock, and she calls Aelin the queen who was promised. And she does not have regular fire, she has moonfire, and she makes her blast off their boat and like an island and kills men and wastes all of Aelin and Rowan's power. She sucks all of Rowan's power because Rowan was trying to get her to stop. Sucks all of her powers. I hate the gods because so you wasted all of that. I hate the gods so much. So then it's just Lysandra left. So Lysandra's in the water. She kills the two sea wyverns and they're like, hey, whatever. But what they had said is that these are the babies, and if you kill the babies, that the adults will come after you and they're relentless and they will never stop hunting you. So then there's 3 adult sea wyverns and they're huge. So she starts killing them. She's like taking the boats out with them or whatever. And Aedion is so worried because he's like, if she gets too tired, she cannot shift out of her animal form. She'll be stuck in it. And Aedion is like up on like, I don't know, he's like got like I can like picture it, he's like got like a mounted like thing to like blast her or whatever. So like they're like, she gets like 2 of the 3, and then it's like the last one that's like chasing her. Dorian's like shooting like his ice power because he like takes one out, like he freezes it, and then like she like slams it and it breaks. And literally, like, Aedion's trying to, like, help. He's shouting for her. He's like, I hate Aelin. I hate everyone for making Lysandra do this. I'm like, Aedion, chill. Chill out. So Lysandra's able to kill them all, like, literally at the last second. But she is, like bleeding out. And she, like, comes up on the beach. And he, like, races down to her. And he tells her, like, open your eyes. You're not going to die. And he, like, starts, like, he says, like, everyone wants to marry you. But I told them they can't marry you because I'm going to marry you. Even if it's 10 to 20 years from now, you're going to be Lysandra Ash River. And I was like, oh, I love that. I love it. And he just, like, he's so angry. Like, Aedion wants to yell at Aelin, but he's like, I know I can't because, like, she's just now starting to, like, delegate. So, like, I know if I say anything to her, like, she will not delegate anymore, and we need her to do that. And Aelin, like, runs down there, and she's like, I'm so sorry, Lysandra. I'm so sorry. And, like, Rolf is like, you're playing with too much power. Like, you don't know what you're doing. And she doesn't tell them, like, what happened. Only, like, her and Rowan know, like, what happened or whatever. And he tells them how he ended up with the map, which he doesn't say who gave him the map. I need to look and see if there's speculation on that because I've never looked. But he basically says he like was like stranded or something in the ocean, and he woke up and there was a man there, and he basically like was like, "What would you do to have like a bunch of power or whatever?" And he was like, "Anything." And he got this map, and he like got home, and his mom and his sister was died, and like that was the price he paid, which it did help him like become like the pirate lord and all these things, but that was the price that he paid. And Aelin realized too that when she was possessed by Diana, not only did she suck all of her power and Rowan's, she used the key against her will. Like, she did not mean to. So after all of this, her and Rowan go away, and we finally get our time. They end up having sex on the beach, which not the best place in the world. I mean, what was different between that and the tree? Nothing. And it's amazing.
The difference is you get sand in all your.
I know, like, I almost would prefer the tree. I don't know. Well, I mean, they have like their little windshield and whatever. And she's literally like on fire and it doesn't affect him. And he's like, she asked him to like bite her again, which he had bit her like in Air of Fire. But like that was out of anger. And when he was like, I don't bite like other men's like women or whatever, because she didn't belong to Chaol, but whatever. And then like she bites him and like it's like a whole thing. Whatever.
So this was the velvet wrap steel scene with.
I cannot. We had just like watched a TikTok and it was like words I hate in romances, and it was like velvet wrap still, and I knew I had heard that somewhere. And then this was before I had finished my reread, and I was like, Aelin's like, and I reached down and I grabbed his velvet wrap still. First of all, velvet is disgusting. It's gross. Oh, that is so funny. And then to top it all off, they go back and everyone can smell them. Like, I not live in this world. I can't live somewhere where you can smell everything that I do. You can smell me if I even think about it. Like, there's no secrecy in this world. Who thought of this? So they go back and like everything's cool now. So Aelin ends up summoning Elena about the lock, and too many words. Elena calls her the queen that was promised again, and she's like, "What does that mean? What does that mean?" So we find out again. Elena had stolen the lock from her father, Brennan, to lock up Erewhon, and that now it is in the Holy City. And it's made of metal and glass. And Elena said, this is where we learn who Elena's mother was. Her mother was literally a goddess. It was Mala, Firebringer. So Aelin is literally heir of fire of Mala. Mala actually turned herself into a human to be with Brannon. And that's how Elena was born. So they end up like they get on a boat because they're going to find this thing or whatever, find this key, and Abraxos shows up with Manon, which I must skip a part here. Manon also gets attacked. So after she fights off the witches, she like wakes up like half dead, and there is a bloodhound in the shape of a woman who tries to kill her. That's also like an Erewhon beast, but she gets away from that. So now she like Abraxos fly because she's like head to the coast, and he finds them and like drops her off on the boat. And Dorian is like, do not shoot, do not do anything. So now Manon is with our group. So then we go back to Lorcan and Elide. I put Lorcan likes her because he's like, like, so Elide, like, she's eating meals now. She's starting to fill out her little shape. He's like, huh. And then the carnival gets attacked. And this is another beast, and it's called an Ilkin. Don't really know what that is. But they like have like a mind because Lorcan is able to like talk to them. And they're basically like, they're looking for a lead. And he's like, yeah, there's nobody here that like by that name or whatever. And he like, they like describe her, and he like lies to them and they leave. But he's like, she lied to me. Like her name's Elide. And he goes to like find her, and she's like trying to escape. And he's like, what was it that you were going to do when they came in here? Like what is going on? Whatever. And, he ends up like killing all of them or whatever. And I was like, BDE. Like, he's like, yeah, I just killed them all. And I'm like, oh, Lorcan Salvatore, like, here. Love him. So she ends up telling him, like, basically, like, if you try to take me to Morath, because she thinks that's what he wants to do, like, I will kill myself. I will not go back there. Like, whatever. She's still, like, she's never told him what she has. Like, he knows that she has something because he's seen her, like, hiding something. He still doesn't know what's going on. And he tells her, like, well, since you want to stick with me, I also am like a problem, and I probably have people after me and hunting me. So just so you know that you're not just safer because you're with me. So we go back to Manon, and she is on the boat with the group, but they have like locked her up in chains. And Aelin basically tells her, like, if you try to escape, hurt us, or do anything else, like, we will kill you. And you owe me another life debt now because we did save your life. And like one of them, I think Rowan or Gavriel, they have like healing powers too. So they can heal her. Dorian actually had like jumped off the boat and like saved her. love Dorian. So Dorian comes down and like tries to talk to her like one-on-one or whatever, and Manon's like very resistant, and she's like seems like she just wants to die. And that's because when she ran into that bloodhound too, they told her that Astrid was dead, like that the 13 had been killed. They basically said like, oh, like they scream, like, so she thinks that everybody is dead. She doesn't know for sure, but she assumes they're all dead. So Manon tells Dorian to tell Aelin that Elide is alive. So we go back to Elide and Lorcan, and they're like in a tavern, like it's like a rainy day or whatever. So she's like eavesdropping on like where, because she's still trying to find Aelin and Selena. She doesn't know these are the same people. And she's like, I just don't know how I'm even gonna get there. And that's when Lorcan's like, I can get you a map. And she's like, I cannot read. So they're like out and about, and they realize that this carnival has sold them out because the Ilkin come back. So they make a run for it, and they get on this boat, and they like, it's a guy there, and they're like, hey, we're going to steal your boat, and like, you can either come with us or like whatever. So they're like, fine. So like Lorcan like makes her hide or whatever, and like he's like, okay, like we'll be good or whatever. And I love Lorca on the reread because then she's like, I hear a splash, and she gets out and she's like, where's the guy? And he's like, oh, like he hopped off. But then she notices like he's like kind of washed his hands and stuff. She's like, you killed him. And I was like, yeah, he killed him. Like, duh. And so then I can't remember what made him put this together, but he doesn't officially know what she has, but he puts it together at this point, and he literally goes into like his bag, and like she hears him like growl, and then he just tosses something out into the water, which we know is his fake one. And like he's put together that she has a key. And he tells her, like, because she's basically like, how could you kill that man? Like, you're a terrible person, da 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 da. And he's like, if you have an issue with how I function, just wait till you meet your queen. Like, you're going to love her. And he's like, the person that you're looking for, Selena, that is Aelin. They are the same person. And she's like, you lied to me. And he's like, no, I told you that you would find one with the other. I basically told you that, whatever. And she tells him, like, she says, you have no one because you're bitter and jealous and lonely, and you're jealous of Rowan for being in love because you're unhappy. And she says, I don't care what you say about Aelin, and I'm going to Ilway. Let me off. And he's like, I'm not letting you off this boat. I'm going to go too. And he like basically, before he threw the amulet and stuff, the fake one into the water, he had opened it, and he's like, because he's like, I'm going to kill Aelin. He's like, I'm going to murder her. So before he threw it off, when he figured out that Aelin had a key, he goes to the fake one, he opens it, and there's a note, and it says, here's to hoping you find more creative things to call me than just bitch. With all my love, and it said AAG for Aelin Ashford. I know he was so pissed. He hates her so bad. Like, he hates Aelin so bad, bro. So we go back to Aelin and Rowan. Like, she's having a dream. This is when we get one of our like favorite lines, which my name is Aelin Galathynius, and I will not be afraid, which is very much my friends are with me and I am not afraid. Yes, we get very much La Hava. But she's like having a dream, and she's literally on fire. Like Rowan, like she burns her clothes off. Like Rowan is like trying to like wake her up. And Rowan like loses control because like he is like afraid. Like he's like worried. And Aelin wants to marry him. She wants to marry him. And this is the only time I think it's ever acceptable for you to say to a man that you want to marry him. Any other time, I would be sick and like angry and throwing up and like pissed off. Don't you ever, 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 ever in your life tell a man that. This is the only acceptable time. And then we get Dorian and Manon. Shadow Daddy. I love it. I love it. So Dorian goes down to see Manon because he feels like a ripple of power. He thinks it's Manon, which, by the way, witches actually have absolutely no power in these books. They only have one power, which is called the yielding, which if it's a one-time use and it causes you to commit suicide. So you commit suicide and you like burst out in this light darkness power thing. So yeah, so it wasn't her. So she's like, oh, okay, it was probably Rowan and Aelin. So anyways, so he goes down there and they're talking or whatever, and she's basically like, what do you need or whatever? And he's like, I don't think you can handle the sort of things I need, witchling. And he tells her, I'm never begging for anything again in my life. And I was like, I'm sick. I'm on a Zayden Ryerson high, and I'm sick. I am sick, Dorian. You are coming in second place. Like, you're, whew. Okay. So then, like, she starts to take her shirt off, and he goes, I'll do it myself. Gagged. And then he kisses her and leaves. Oh my god, he gags her, he leaves, and she's chained up. Oh my god. Oh, I would be so sick. I'm already being tortured, and then you come out here playing with me. Like, what is going on? So he goes to Aelin, and he's like, hey, like, can we let her out of the chains? Like, it's a bit much. And he's arguing with her, but he's like, by the way, I am a king. Like, you're not the HBIC. Like, I defer to you because whatever, but I too wear a crown. Don't forget. And then Adian notices that Aelin and Rowan have bites all over them too. I cannot. So Aelin basically agrees to like a modified like restraint basically for Manon. And this is again the sensing because then Aelin's literally like looking at Rowan thinking about some sexy time, and Rowan's like, "What are you thinking about?" And he's like, "Okay, round two." And I'm like, to be stuck on a boat, to be stuck on a boat with them, to be stuck on a boat with them and be single. Because if you're anybody but those two or Dorian and Manon, I need to get off this boat. I need to get off this boat. So they all go down to Manon's room, and Fenris is with them, and they like are going in to talk to her, but then Manon's like, "Who's that lady?" He's like, "Who's that?" They're like, "It's Fenris," and she's like, "No," and it literally shifts, and it's the freaking Bloodhound. She like got here somehow, and she's there to try to get Manon, and this is when she's like saying they killed Astrid, and Dorian just manifests out these phantom hands and pins the Bloodhound and lets Manon kill her. And then they go up and like there's the Ilkin, they're on the deck. So like they all like start like fighting or whatever. And this is like Manon tells them like after this whole thing that she's like the Kraken Queen. Like she's really tore up about this whole Kraken Queen thing. And after this, they talk about like why Erewhon is like finally deciding to like come out now, about how Maeve, like, cause they're like, he surely had to know you were alive. Like Maeve knew that you guys were alive this whole time. Like why wouldn't Erewhon know that? And Fenris just randomly, he says like, well, nameless is the price to serve Maeve. And Aelin's like, I'm sorry, what? I've heard that before. Okay, so like Aelin's like throwing up. Rowan goes to the room and he's like, let me in or whatever. And she's like, I don't want you to see me like this. And he's like, I've literally seen you wet yourself. And he's like, he immediately is like, oh my God, she's pregnant. Rowan, you guys had sex 2 days ago, first of all. Secondly, absolutely not. This is not the time. Like, absolutely not. No. So we jump back over to Lorcan and Elide. They stop because Elide has started her period because now she is healthy-ish. So they stop in this village, and I must have missed the part of the reread, but at some point in the reread, he also like makes her like pads, and he is like cutting like his shirt up or whatever. But yeah, so they go in this village, and he's like getting supplies or whatever. So he's like really not paying attention, and she gets captured by her uncle Vernon. So they're like trying to put her in this box, trying to take her back to Morath, and Lorcan's like, it's eerily quiet, like what's up? So he catches on because she basically like this like merchant was like, hey, try these clothes on or whatever. So they like sold her out at this tavern. So she's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna kill myself. Like she's already said like, I'm not going back. So she literally like pulls a knife about to kill herself, and Lorcan throws like a dagger and like almost like breaks her wrist, like so she doesn't do it. And like she runs, then they like end up like killing like the Ilkin or whatever it was, and end up getting away or whatever. And they also like when they had her captured, they're like, Manon is dead. Like they're just like trying to like break her down. And I can't remember where it is, but at some point in here, we learned that Ilway is also burning. And at this point, I was like, is the marsh the bog? Because it's very boggish. So, because when Lorcan and Elide run, they end up in this like marsh, and it's like Elide is like, I can feel like the people who died like did not get away. It's like they're still here, and she's like, I can hear them, and she's like, there's monsters in here. Like it's a very scary, scary place. There are scary, scary things, and it's disgusting, and yeah. So I don't know. And then Lorcan starts talking about how he loves Maeve. Like Lorcan, please, please, please. But Elide likes Lorcan, and they're like camped out one night, and she kisses him, and then they're like about to kind of hook up, but then Lorcan's like, oh no, we need to run because there's like a bunch of Ilkin coming. So we go back over with our group, and they also like make it to Ilway, which is where they were headed to find this thing. And basically Maeve is like setting all these fires because she wants people to think it's Aelin. She wants people to think Aelin is like burning stuff or whatever. So they like have to take out all the Ilkin, and then they start like heading into the marsh or whatever. And they stop, and they're like sitting like around or whatever, and Manon gets attacked by like this little like beast or whatever, even though Rowan's been keeping these shields up. And she's like, Aelin's like, convenient, Rowan, how like your shield just happens to fall down right by Manon. And he's like, he's basically training Dorian because like Dorian like saved Manon like with the witch hand, like the shadow hands or whatever. But it's like, yeah, he's like, well, I mean, I released it by the witch. So they end up finding this, what's supposed to be the lock. But it's nothing impressive. It's literally like a mirror. It's like a looking glass. And on it is the eye of Elena, which Manana's like, no, that is the three-faced goddess. That is the eye of the goddess. It's the crone, the mother, and the maiden. And that's when she tells them, she's like, Rhiannon was the Kraken Queen who cursed us and our land, and that's why the witches cannot go home. Like, it made it barren. Like, the humans are there now and it grows, but if the witches go there, like, it will not grow. And Gavriel tells Rowan, like, I think you should take Aelin from here. Like, it seems like a trap. Like, you have two queens sitting here. They're both, like, mixed race queens, like, one of human and fae, one of Kraken and Iron Teeth. Like you should, this seems bad or whatever. And Fenris tells Rowan, like, hey, if Maeve comes and I'm ordered to kill Aelin, I want you to kill me. Like, I cannot do it. Like, they're basically very fully on the side of, like, Aelin at this point. So they sense Lorcan, and this is actually when the Ilkin show up. So they sense Lorcan, and then that's when the Ilkin show up, but Aelin is able to, like, burn them all. Like, she kills them all. And Elide has, like, almost like precognition. Like, she has something. I don't know. It's never, like, fully defined. But of course, after that, Lorcan is standing there, and so Gavriel and Fenris attack, and Elide jumps in front of him and gets her arm almost bitten off. So everyone is pissed, and Gavriel feels so bad, and Aelin, like, runs to her and is crying, and is like, oh my gosh, Elide, and she finally tells Elide, like, what her mom told her, like, 15 years ago at this point, I don't know, and tells her when she was like, tell my Elide that I love her. And so, like, they're all crying, and so they start healing Elide's arm, and Elide gives her the word key, and she tells her what Kaltain said, which was, like, remember what you said, and about the cloak and everything. And so they're looking at this, like, lock, and again, it's like a looking glass. It's a mirror. And that's what Manon says. This is a witch mirror. She's like, this is, like, witch mirrors. You can, like, see the future, the past, the present. You can also talk through them to someone if they have, like, the twin mirror. Like, but this isn't, like, it's not like a traditional lock. And then she says some mirrors can even blast power, which are like the ones her grandmother had been making for the king of Otterlin. So they head back to the beach. So they're going to get back on the boat. And there is, like, a whole massive fleet. So they're, like, panicking. They're like, oh my God, like, we got to get out of here. But Aelin's like, we're good. And I was like, yeah. And it's because this is Ansel of Briarcliff from the desert and the assassins. They're the one that she let live. So if you remember back to, is that the last book? I think it is the last one. When she was in the pits and she was fighting the Vogue for Erebin, she gave them Ansel's name. And she knew that would get to her. And Ansel says, like, I heard that someone was using my name fighting in the pits. And she basically says, like, Ansel says, like, yeah, like, after you let me live, like, I went back to, like, my land. I fought in Melisande. I got my army back. Like, and she basically did everything that she said she wanted to do. And so now she's here to repay the debt that she owes Aelin. So they don't have to worry because they're all good. So we have this little moment with Lysandra and Aedion, and Lysandra's really thinking about how she doesn't, like, they haven't talked about the fact that Aedion said he wanted to marry her, but Lysandra's thinking about how she doesn't think Aedion will want her, like, because of, like, her past. And he's like, I do not care about that. Like, I could care less about that. And then finally we get Manon and Dorian hooking up. He uses those shadow hands. We love that. We love a shadow dad. But unfortunately, good things come to an end very quickly, and Maeve shows up, and she wants Aelin. So Rowan goes to all of the ships because his cousins are part of Maeve's armada, and he goes to them, and he basically is like, I need you to fight on my side. And Dorian tells Manon and Aelin that he wants them to look at the witch mirror, and he tells them that he thinks that this is a traveling mirror. And so they, like, touch it and they end up inside of it. And what they end up seeing is what we saw in the prologue, which is Elena putting Erewhon away. And so the lock that Elena had could only be used once, and the gods were pissed because the lock was literally made by Mala. So she gave up her mortal form to make this lock, and Brandon had been holding onto it because the lock was not only for Erewhon, but it was also to send the gods back to wherever they came from. And so now they're angry because they are stuck here. And they felt like Aelin wasted it. And so they're like, well, let's just release him. And Aelin begged, she's like, please, like, don't. Like, I did all this to get him like locked down. And she's like, I'll do anything. And they like look at Gavin and she's like, okay, well, not Gavin. And they say that Mala's bloodline will have to bleed again to forge a new lock. And Aelin will have to lead them like a lamb to the slaughter. And I was like, Harry Potter. That's what Snape said. You've been raising him like a lamb for the slaughter. After all this time. Always. Okay. I know. Keely has no idea what I'm talking about. That's my next tattoo. Yeah, so Aelin has to die. Aelin has to die. So Elena basically agrees to this. She's like, whatever. Because she's like, I'm not gonna know that person. So she comes out of there with the gods. Gavin's like, what happened? Because Gavin had been kind of like almost dead because he was the distraction for Erewhon. And he's like, what happened? And she lies and she's like, oh, I just have to help like whoever the person is when like Erewhon rises again. But we know that his sword, the sword of, what's it called? Damaris. The sword of Damaris is like the sword of truth. And because he's like holding his sword, he knows that Elena's lying to him. And so he's like not happy with her. And then in the mirror, it switches to Nehemia. And Nehemia is like going through that marsh that they were in because Nehemia thought she was the one who needed to do all of this. And so she finds the mirror, takes her to Elena, and Elena's like, no, it's not you. It's the Mala line. She says the line branches into two families, the Halvyards and the Galathynius, so Aelin and Dorian. And she tells Nehemia that she needs to go and find them. And she tells them, like, they're actually already in the same place because this is right before Aelin ends up in Rifthold. And she talks about how the mark that shows up on Aelin's forehead is the mark of Brennan. It's the bastard's mark. And she tells Nehemia that you will die in Rifthold. So she knew that. She said that's the price of this. And then we switch and we see Brannon, when Elena, because Elena is his daughter, but Elena dies before him because she chose a mortal life to be with Gavin. And so when we see him crying over her like sarcophagus, and then he formed the amulet of Orinth. He put the word keys inside of that, or one of them. And then this is when we get the saying again, nameless is my price, meaning that Brandon's heir, nameless, would be the price to pay for Elena's mistake. And then we see him make Mort. Poor Mort. I saw something that was like, does anyone ever think of Mort? Like how he's just down there, just like lonely. No one's ever going to be down there again to talk to him. And then we see him put one of the keys in Elena's crown, and then he put one in Mala's temple, which is like surrounded by like a river of fire, and only someone with the fire power or magic can cross that river to get into that temple. And so then Elena reappears, and Aelin says, why me and not Dorian? And Elena says he wasn't ready. And she's like, yeah, I'm the queen that was promised to the gods, like not to my people. I was to die. I'm the queen to the keys. And she says, she said, I didn't survive due to luck in that river, did I? And she says, show me. So she makes Elena show her the night that Erewhon came for her as a kid. And basically she sees herself fall in the river, and Elena was there in human form. And she said, like, you fought, and she got her on the riverside. And she said she didn't drown, but Aelin died from like hypothermia. And Elena says, they wanted me to take you then and have you do all the stuff, which I was like, a 8-year-old? You wanted an 8-year-old to go do all the stuff that she's doing? She barely is doing it right now. How did you want her to do that? So then basically Elena was like, I'm going to bring her back to life. And she brought Aelin back to life. And she literally woke up Arabin to come and get her. And she said she knew that he would probably do everything that he did, but she knew that it would at least give her a fighting chance versus being death. And the gods punished Elena for that. And she's like, well, what was the price? And so basically the price is that Elena, when this is all over, will completely disappear. Her soul will perish. She will never see her children, her husband, her father, nobody. Her soul will be gone. And Aelin asked, did she know that beforehand? And she says yes. And so Aelin says, Aelin says, why did you send me to Wendland? And she says, I sent you to him. He had been waiting. And I was like, they're mates. They're mates. And Elena shows Aelin what she'll have to do. And Manana's there this whole time. She's like in the background. And so they end up coming out of the mirror and they see a lead on the ground of this beach with a sword to her throat. And it's Maeve. So what happened is that when they saw Ansel's fleet, Lorcan summoned Maeve because he thought this was an enemy and he wanted to save Elide. So Aelin is gonna she's trying to fight Maeve. Maeve is like not having it. Gavriel and actually out on the water, Adian, like while they're in this mirror or whatever, Rowan, Adian, they're all on the ships, they're fighting. And all of Rowan's cousins do end up fighting on their side. So they're out there doing this whole battle. Because basically they were in the Dawn, Aelin needs to surrender herself. Obviously Dawn comes, Rowan's like, Aelin's not here, they don't care. So they're like, what's up, let's go. So they're fighting or whatever. So when they come back, that's when they end up on the beach. And Gavriel, he told Gavriel and Fenris, disappear for as long as possible. So they show up and Elite or Aelin, they're all like, please just let Elite go. She doesn't have anything to do with this. Manon's like, we claim her as with the witches. She doesn't have anything to do with this. They're all trying to get Elite let go. So then Maeve turns to Gavriel and tells him that he's basically a disappointment, and she severs his bond and tells him to join Aelin's court. And she turns to Fenris and she's like, and you, that's exactly what you want. So I'm never going to do that to you. So she doesn't free him. And Maeve says that she wants the keys. She says, Brandon stole those keys from me, and then he went and made it with that goddess. And she says, she knew about Aelin and Rowan. She envisioned it. She didn't know when Aelin and Rowan would be born or when they would run into each other. But she knew that not only would Aelin and Rowan be powerful, but their children are going to be invincible, the freaking Avengers. So when Rowan was born and came of age, she made him convinced that he met his mate, and then he allowed her to get pregnant and then killed his mate and child so that he would be completely broken and come to her to serve the blood oath. She did all of that. And then she wanted to make sure that Aelin met him so that Aelin would have a weakness so that she would hand over the keys. And she kept trying to get Aelin's mom to bring her so that Rowan and Aelin, their bond would kick in. And Aelin has actually known that Rowan has been her mate ever since he got shot with the arrow when they were running from Manon, and he took that arrow from her. And Maeve says, I let you guys go that day in Dornell because I wanted you to bring me the keys. She says, and she tells them too, she said, you guys would have had 1,000 years or more together because Aelin is half Fae, she could or could not live a Fae life, but apparently she is, she's very strong. It makes sense. So she could live 1,000 years, and she's 5 years from settling, which is what happens when a Fae settles into their long age. So then she calls out Cairn, who they talk about earlier in the book. He wants to be a part of the cadre, and now because Rowan is gone, he is. He's a masochist, or a sadist. He is disgusting. He is a psychopath, and he likes to torture people. And Maeve is like, he is going to torture you. And she tells Aelin that you can come willingly and spend time with Cairn, or I'll take you and Elide, and she can spend time with Cairn too. And she tells Lorcan and Fenris that they will stand there and shut up and not move and not speak. And so they literally cannot move, speak, or do anything because of the bond. And so Aelin surrenders, and Elide goes to Manon, and Aelin just turns to them and she's like, tell Lysandra to remember her promise. And she says, tell Adian it's not his fault and that I wish he could take the oath. She says, tell Rowan I'm sorry, I lied. It was borrowed time and he must fight and remember his vows and thank you. And then she makes Aelin bow to her, and she starts whipping her because she knows she was a slave. And she wants Aelin to count, but Aelin will not count. So she have Cairn start over 9 times before she starts counting, and then whips her 10 times after that. And even her servants are like, Maeve, oh my God, like she's like like she's ruined. So then they pull out this like iron box and an iron mask and iron shackles, and they bind her up and put her in it, and they take her away. But Aelin had given the keys to Manon. So that's why Manon literally was like silent throughout this whole thing, because she was trying not to draw attention to herself, because Maeve was so focused on torturing Aelin that she didn't even think about checking to see if she has the keys. And before Maeve leaves, she also strips Lorcan, and Lorcan's like, Aelin is so disgusted. She's like, Lorcan is groveling, begging, crying, spitting, throwing up, because he's like, please, no, no, no. After everything she just done, you still want to be with her? Yeah, okay. Also, like, Lorcan, she doesn't even sleep with Lorcan. Like, she literally, he loves her out of all of them, and she does not spend any time with him. So there's that. So the ship vanishes, and then Rowan literally, like, shows up, and he's like, where is Aelin? Where is Aelin? Where is my wife? Because Aelin had asked him, like, the night before, like, I need you to do something for me. And Lorcan literally starts crying for, like, the first time in, like, centuries. He starts crying. Also, the 13 end up showing up because Abraxos had left, and he brought them back. And so everyone's here, and Elite tells them everything that happened. And Lysandra shows up, and Lysandra knew this was the plan the whole time. So Aedion turns to her, and he is pissed. He is like going off, because the plan is that Lysandra is going to be Aelin. Like, that was the plan. Aelin knew that this could possibly happen. So, and Aedion's like, okay, but what's going to happen when you need to have kids? And she just like looks at him. He's like, oh, so I'm supposed to sleep with my cousin. And at what point were you going to tell me that I was supposed to sleep with my cousin? Which I'm like, I felt like they were going to tell you. Like, Aelin really loves Rowan, so I think it would be weird if all of a sudden she started wanting to sleep with you, Aedion. But yeah, I'm like, you know. Also, I did forgot to mention the part that also, like, Dorian and Aelin are cousins too, so like kissing cousins over there. Forgot about that part. But yeah, so like Aelin knew. Also, Lysandra and Aedion did know that Rowan and Aelin got married. They were the witnesses for them getting married. Aedion literally calls Lysandra a bitch, and I'm like, whoa, bro. Whoa, bro. What are you so mad about? And so Elite is rightfully pissed. She goes to Lorcan and she says, I hope that you spend the rest of your life alone and miserable and suffering. I hate you. I hate you so much. And Manon like tells the like 13 everything, and she's like, but like, did you guys hear what my grandma said? And they're like, what? Like, you're half Kraken? And she's like, I mean, yeah. And they're like, okay. Like, they do not care. Like, she was like, I mean, but do you still love me? They don't care. And Manon tells them, well, we owe Aelin a life debt. And she's like, basically, we're going to go find the rest of the Krakens and raise an army. And she gives Dorian the keys. And Rowan also knew that him and Aelin were mates. I don't think he knew it as early as Aelin. But he did also figure it out. He just says, like, he's like on the like shore, like he's like staring out, and he's just like, I'm going to come for you. If it takes like 100 years, like I will find you. And then all of these people start showing up. So first, there's like a man that shows up, and he's like, where's Aelin? And they're like, who are you? And it is Galen Ashriver, the Prince of Windland, because Aelin had sent him a message and was like, Terrasen never forgot her mom, basically, like, and she's like, basically, like, I saved your people this spring, like, are you gonna show up or put up or shut up, basically. So he shows up, and then the Silent Assassins show up. Ilias and the Silent Assassins show up. And Aedion sitting there with his big ass foot in his mouth, because he had like jumped down her throat earlier in the book, like, where are all our allies, Aelin? Where's all this stuff? And like, you know, all the stuff that Lord Darrow had said, like, about them not having anything, and she pulled through. She got all of these people to come. They literally just showed up 5 minutes too late. And so they're like all looking for Aelin. So then Lysandra walks out as Aelin, and she greets them, and she says, we're going north to Terrasen. The end. So, thoughts? Not exactly sure what happened, but it seems like Keely's mic went out for all of our post discussion questions. So she rated this book a 4.75. She said she really enjoyed this book and there's nothing that she could think of to make it better. She just did not 5-star it. She said her favorite character is actually Lysandra. She's really enjoyed the arc of her character, but her most surprising character was Dorian, which you'll hear my part on there about how much I love Dorian. Keely really said she just like had so much anxiety throughout this book. It has her on the edge of her seat. It's probably my fault. She's not so excited to go to Tower of Dawn because we are going to be leaving these characters for a whole book and then coming back to them. But unfortunately, her mic went out and then came back in at the very end. I'm gonna go through some of these questions. I gave it a 4.5. I don't know why. I think I just picked it. I love this book. We do love Dorian. We love him. It's a tortured man. I love a tortured man. Our next book is Tower of Dawn. It's Chaol. Chaol and Nezra, everyone else is new. Well, there's one not new character, but we don't really know much about them. All right, do we have reviews?
We have a 5-star from Cheryl. Shout out to Cheryl. My heart is wrecked. Absolutely aching. Felt. Definitely me. Very, very upset. And 1 star, 60%. 1 star for Manon Blackbeak. Well, I tried. So it looks like maybe they only gave this 1 star because of Manon, which I love Manon. I do love. Another 1 star was hashtag save the trees. Someone said 1 star. Dorian Havilyard was not born for this disrespect. Goodbye. Okay, but I have to show you they did little gifts with it, so I have to show you this. It's Dorian before and then Dorian after Empire Storm.
Okay. So we have 2 more books and then we're done with SJM until further notice. Like, that's insane. It's been pretty much the whole time we've been in the podcast. So it's been almost 2 years of that. So, all right. Well, our next book is something we've been supposed to read for a long time. It is The White Guy Dies First, which is an anthology. There's several authors in that. So Keely really likes it. I'm excited to read it. But yeah, so this wasn't too terribly long. Didn't have to do a 2-parter because I did condense. So I feel like I covered most of the stuff, but still spoiled a lot and talked about things. But yeah, so if you're not already following us on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, then make sure you go do that. And then we will talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.